Hello and welcome to this Game Pit stop for Space Marine Adventures from Games Workshop for 1 to 4 players cooperatively playing over about 35 minutes. In Space Marine Adventures, Labyrinth of the Necrons, players will take control of 4 Space Marines no matter what the player count is, and they will have a mission to complete in this maze which is filled up with these Necrons. The whole timing of the game is from these turn order cards, and every round you're going to flip one over and it's going to tell you who gets to activate. In this case it's the Ultramarine, and that each of the Space Marines have got a number of actions they can take, and Sergeant Cassius here, the Ultramarine, can take 4. One of your actions can be to move 1 space. You always move orthogonally. There's a Necron in the way, you can never move through Necrons, you can move through friendly units. Another one of your actions would be to take an attack. Now in this case, Brother Cassius is adjacent, he's got a range of up to 4, so he can attack up to 4 spaces away. He can see just around corners, but not any further than that. In this case, he's going to attack this Necron warrior, which has a resistance of 3, so he'll take his d6 and roll it, and he'll hope to roll a 3. Unfortunately, he rolled a 1 there. Now, each of the Space Marines have got their own actions. If you miss an attack, you can just go again. In that case, it's a 2, which would usually be a miss. However, Sergeant Cassius' special power is that he's got a chainsword. He's +1 when he attacks adjacent, so that will kill that Necron and take it out of the way. Next thing we'll do is flip over, and it's going to be the Iron Fist turn, and they've got a range of 8, and they could therefore move forward. This is more actions than they could take in a turn, and they could shoot along here and attempting to roll a 3 again. In that case, they missed. This has been a poor start for the Space Marines. Now, within this deck, there's 2 of these activation cards for each of the Marines. We're playing with 4 out of the 5 possible. There's a Salamander you can use as well, but the Necrons are also going to take turns, and they're going to have goes back at you. Most of the time on the Necron turn, it's just going to be a reinforcement. Now, a reinforcement brings Necrons back into play, and in this case, it's Necron reinforcement on node 5. Now, node 5 is filled, therefore, you're going to put a Necron in play into all the adjacent spaces orthogonally. The only thing you ignore in this case is walls. That's going to bring into play the second type of enemy in this level 1 of the game, and that's a Necron Immortal, and they've got a slightly higher resistance, and they're going to offer you more trouble in going through. You might get nastier ones like invasion beams, which will add Necrons to various nodes. Now, if you've got to add a Necron to a node, and let's say that our Iron Fist was back there, Brother Grimm, and this Necron had to come in there and he's in the way, then all that happens is Brother Grimm takes a wound. Now, when Space Marines get wounded, if they take 1 more, then they are out of the game, and that's going to prevent you from getting a major victory. Now, what's a major victory? Well, in this first level, you need to get all the way to this control console, and then when you're there, spend actions to roll your die, hoping to roll a 6. It seems unlikely that's going to happen, but there we go. And when you do that, you flip over all of these portal tokens. 2 of them remain barred to you, but the third one shows you the way out of the labyrinth. In that case, you add the other staircase in on there, and it's your job now to get all 4 of the Space Marines to here before they get defeated by the swarms of the Necron coming along and attacking you. Now, there are other things that can happen when the Necron turns. They can add resistance and they become more powerful to defeat. Or there can be a chrono field which will prevent the next Space Marine from taking their actions. Luckily enough, there's a big deck here of special cards, and at the beginning of the game you get to draw 2 for each Marine, put them into a pool, and everyone gets to draft 1 out of them. And you're going to get generic ones such as a frag grenade, which help you attack in the whole area, or a Narthagium, which will help you heal someone from wounded back to their healthy side. It doesn't affect their stats, it just means 2 wounds is out. Or there are also specific ones for each chapter, like the Red Thirst for the Blood Marine, which allow them to move and attack and move and attack. Or the Son of Gulliman here for Sergeant Cassius, and that's going to add to their attack characteristic and the number of actions they can take on a turn. Now, I've mentioned level 1 here, this is what you're trying to do is get out here, because the game plays in 3 different levels. You can play them in a campaign all at once, or you can split them up. And when you go to level 2, the game increases in difficulty because the Necron Lich Guard come into play. In fact, you have to defeat one of those in order to move on, and they're even more difficult to defeat with a resistance of 5. And you get more difficult Necron activation cards like a Scarab Swarm, which takes away Space Marine actions, Reanimation Protocols again, which makes the Lich Guard more difficult to defeat, or Enhanced Invasion Beams, which can activate 3 of these nodules at once and add lots more tokens onto the board, therefore making it more likely that you get hit. When you move on to level 3, you're then going to face the Necron Overlord, which is the toughest of all. It takes a roll of 6 to damage the Necron Overlord, and also the only enemy in the game that has multiple hits. You require 3 hits to defeat the Overlord on level 3 off the Necron Labyrinth. And as you'd expect, yet more difficult cards. My Will Be Done here. It does all 6 of those translocation squares at once, or the living metal lets him heal, or the phase shifter means you need to roll a 7 on a d6 to hit him, obviously with like the +1 from the chainsword and other bonuses you can have from these special cards. I did say you can play it in the campaign, and the game very slightly changes. You get to keep these bonus cards from turn to turn, and you retain your wounded status, but it pretty much follows those 3 levels. And that is a harder challenge, obviously, to keep yourself alive through there. And there are challenges more and above that. There's one that affects the whole game, but there's also level-specific challenges to make them more difficult for you, like the phylactery gives the Overlord an extra health. And then there are also very difficult Labyrinth cards you can put in there. There are 6 of them. They recommend playing with 1, but if you're crazy, you can try with all 6. And a lot of the time what they'll do is they'll set you back to the stairwell. Not quite physically like that, during the games. It makes it longer and makes it tougher for you, giving all sorts of levels of challenge into Space Marines Adventures Labyrinth of the Necrons. This has been a Game Pit Stop. For more videos like this, check out our YouTube channel, and for more in-depth coverage of games, please check out the Game Pit podcast. Thank you.